This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
From Kings Cove inside the Toyota Sports Center here in El Segundo, California, this is Behind the Mic. Welcome in, everybody. Another great evening here as it is Thursday, April the 5th, 2018. Lots to get to in the world of sports. Brad Dalius along with you tonight for 2 hours. As usual, we go up until 9 o'clock Pacific time. From opening day at the Masters today to Major League Baseball continuing here in its opening week. We'll talk about Sergio Garcia's eventful day at the Masters. I'll get into that later on during tonight's show. But we got a great show for you. Like I said, Brad Dalius here, going to be joined by Jason Wechsler in just a second. Jason covers sports for the Northeast Sports Network. Check him out at nsnsports.net. I'll bring in Jason here in just a sec. We'll be joined later on in the show tonight by Michael Franca. He's a good friend of Behind the Mic here at the show. He covers Miami sports for SB Nation. We'll chat with Michael about Lonnie Walker's decision. As he made it official last night, he is declaring for the NBA draft. He will go pro this June. We'll also touch on LeBron versus Saban. Didn't really get into it during last night's show, but the feud, if you will, that's going on between the two of them right now, we'll talk about it later. But now I want to bring in Jason Wechsler. As I mentioned, he covers sports for the Northeast Sports Network. Check him out at nsnsports.net. Jason, how are things going tonight?
Things are pretty good, or they were pretty good. For the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier on in the game is looking at it right now. They're heading into the fourth quarter, and Cleveland's down 8 because they don't guard anybody. So my night was going well, but not too good right now.
I will mention Jason is a big LeBron fan, and he has been for years. He's not a bandwagon jumper. He's been a LeBron fan since day one. And as he said there, yes, Cleveland doesn't play much defense at the moment. That's why they're currently trailing to the Wizards right now over on TNT. Big day in basketball, Jason. We'll start here with the big breaking news that went down earlier today. Kyrie Irving, he's done for the season. The Celtics made that official. We all know he's been having problems with his knee. That dates back to a couple years now in the finals against the Warriors when he totally blew his knee out and was down for the rest of that finals. And the knee's been bothering here from quite some time. And they made the announcement today he's going to have to go under the knife again. And he's going to be out 4 to 5 months. So his season is done. He's out, obviously, for the rest of the season, rest of the playoffs, and it significantly hurts Boston's chances, obviously, to make any kind of noise in the Eastern Conference, and it only helps out a team like Cleveland going forward and possibly Toronto as well. Your thoughts on Irving being done for the season and what it means for the rest of the conference?
It's really so disheartening as a basketball fan. I mean, you know that I'm a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan, and I kiss the ground LeBron walks on, but I still want to be able to see this Boston team that, by the way, is without their second-best player from about 5 minutes into the season when they lost Gordon Hayward after they got him, and the team that was able to rebound after that, you know, they were able to just start off so well, and the end of their season, obviously, it's starting out like the beginning of the season, and you mentioned it already. The fact that they don't have Kyrie Irving going into the postseason means that they're pretty much done. And I think you could pencil in Toronto and Cleveland now as the two top teams in the East. So the seedings probably are still going to change a little bit between Cleveland and Philadelphia because as they both went into action tonight, they're both tied at 48 and 30. But it's just really disheartening if you're a basketball fan. And if you really just wanted to see Kyrie square off against LeBron, you're not going to get to see that this postseason. That's just really unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. Boston was a team who's really had a lot of luck. Let's face it, since Danny Ainge took over there in Beantown, he's been able to really wave the magic wand. They've got a lot of, they've gotten some fortunate help from some other organizations that have been dysfunctional, i.e. the Nets, getting a lot of draft picks from them. And they've been able to draft really well over the past couple of seasons as well. But this season, though, Jason, they haven't been lucky. It has not been the luck of the Irish for the Celtics, because we all know what happened on opening night with Gordon Hayward going down for the season. And now this with Irving, and you just don't know. I think that's the biggest thing. You don't know with injuries in any sport. One moment it looks like a team is destined to be young, healthy, fresh, ready to take on the world. The next moment, injuries can start piling up, and it leaves everything in doubt. So it's obviously it's a tough draw for them going forward with all the injuries, and it'll be tough for them to really advance far in the playoffs. You mentioned Philly, though, and yeah, you got to love this. If you're a Sixers fan, it kind of paves the way potentially for them to make some noise in the playoffs. Trust the process. That's what we've all been hearing. But it really can happen this time. I think Philly can make a deep run here in the playoffs. What do you think?
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, they've won, I believe it's 12 in a row now. They're a team that, you were waiting for them, and finally, they're able to get something going behind Joel Embiid, and I think that J.J. Redick was a decent signing for them, too. And you can't discount the play of Ben Simmons. He's really been able to get it going for Philadelphia. And more importantly than this year, I think what Philadelphia has set up long-term is something that's really going to pay off for them down the road. But that said, they're a team that can make a lot of noise this year, especially with Kyrie Irving going down. I don't know how much, Brad, you're sold on DeMar DeRozan, but are they a team that's possibly better than Toronto, despite what the records say? I don't think that's crazy to think at the moment.
It's not. I wouldn't think so at all. By the way, we're speaking with Jason Wechsler from the Northeast Sports Network. Check him out, nsnsports.net. I agree. Toronto, to me, is the team that should benefit the most from this. They've been the top seed in the Eastern Conference seemingly all year long. They're a team that has lost a couple games here down the stretch recently, but they still have overall had the best season. You would think they would benefit the most from the Celtics being down a player or two here come playoff time. Toronto, I want to believe in them, Jason. I think that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people do. I still think Cleveland, though, has got to be the favorite here in the East just because of LeBron and what he's been able to do for so long. It's hard for me to envision a team knocking them off in the Eastern Conference, a team outside of Golden State.
That's the thing. I honestly think that I might give Philadelphia, the way they've been playing, the best chance to knock off Cleveland. But they're dealing with an injury, too. Joel Embiid's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's dealing with that orbital fracture. And I feel like this year, more so than other years, we've just seen plenty of big-time injuries. You see what the Spurs are dealing with Kawhi Leonard having not played. Plenty of teams are without a lot of their big guys, but LeBron James in his 16th year in the NBA is just the guy that keeps on chugging. He's played every game this year, and he's just able to stay healthy in a way that other guys aren't, and other teams aren't as fortunate to have their guys stay as healthy as LeBron, who spends over $1 million a year on conditioning.
It is amazing, right? His longevity. It's not something that's talked about a lot until these type of situations and injuries come up, obviously, but his ability to stay healthy here for such a long period of time and night after night after night, the continuous grind, what can you say? The guy just keeps chugging along, and although there's different antics of his here and there, i.e. his feud with Nick Saban, which we can discuss in a second or two, you have to respect the way that he's able to go about things in a workmanlike mentality and, like I said, just keep plugging away here when other guys are going down with injuries. You just don't know. It's part luck, but it's also part conditioning, like you said, with his rigorous conditioning program and all the money he spent. It pays dividends, and that's showing.
And he's really just such a bull. I mean, when you look at it, they were talking about it on the TNT halftime show that LeBron basically gets fouled every play. Candace Parker was asked, how do you deal with that if you're LeBron, pretty much getting fouled every play? To which Shaq replied he got fouled on every play. And my dad and I were having an argument about it where I said Shaq basically pulled everybody over every second, and everything he did was an offensive foul, to which my dad agreed. But LeBron just gets hit so often and is just able to deal with his contact because he's just so strong and he's just so unique. He can guard anybody on the floor, but his other teammates have to pick up the slack defensively, and that's the biggest reason why you might see Philadelphia coming out of the East. But I really don't think so. I think you have a better chance of Houston coming out of the West than you do a different team besides the Cavaliers coming out of the East.
So you're a big Houston guy. You like what they've done down there with Harden and Paul, and you think there's enough, as we kind of segue to the Western Conference, you think there's enough that Houston poses that they can take down Golden State?
I think we still don't know. I think it's a guessing game anytime you deal with injuries. Anytime you deal with injuries with Steph Curry, we know he's going to be out the first round for certain, and you know, it could linger. It could linger. I'm not sold that Steph Curry is going to be completely healthy when it comes time to presumably take on the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals.
I agree. We don't know, obviously, with Curry, his availability later on. I think it's safe to say, though, we can all agree that it's going to be somewhat of a problem for him in some capacity the rest of the way here into the postseason, obviously, as far as Golden State may go. There's no answer, though, for Kevin Durant. I think that's the big thing. What is the answer for Kevin Durant? How do teams somewhat slow him down? I just think I've talked about this before with Houston, and talking about earlier, actually, when Houston and Golden State were somewhat neck and neck at the top of the conference trying to battle for that 1 seed. I made the case for a while now that the 1 seed was much more important to Houston than it was to Golden State, and obviously the Rockets are going to get it here, borrowing some kind of meltdown at the very, very end. They're going to get the number 1 seed, and I think it's important to them do it. To me, it doesn't matter as far as home court goes. Golden State can go on the road. I think they can definitely beat Houston. Houston pushes it possibly to a 6th game, but I just think there's too much depth with Golden State. That's their biggest thing. That's the difference between them and so many other teams across the association, their depth and what they're able to do. Even with a Steph Curry being injured and being down or somewhat slowed in the postseason, I think there's too much firepower there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's been the thing with Golden State for years is they have guys on their team that can be starters that just routinely come off the bench, like Andre Iguodala.
Yeah.
You know, they just have the ability to have such a deep roster, and that's so important. I think that's what differentiates them from Houston. But I think Houston could stay with them and will beat them a couple of games because they could outshoot Golden State on the right night. And I don't think that's crazy to say.
It's not. You don't know. That's why they play the games, obviously. We shall see what happens. It's definitely key, though, like I said, that Houston got this number 1 seed. It gives them the confidence they need to go forward and to eventually take on to Golden State if that matchup presents itself in the playoffs. I kind of talked about this last night. Would you like to see, Jason, the first round of the playoffs go back to a best-of-5 format like it used to be? Currently best-of-7 now. Would you like to see it go back, though?
No, I don't. And that's from a selfish reason of I really just like to see as much playoff basketball as possible. What I think that they should possibly consider doing is just allowing the top 16 teams into the NBA postseason, regardless of conference, because there's some good Western Conference teams that get left out every year.
That's a great point. We've talked about that here on Behind the Mic in the past as well when the commissioner, Adam Silver, proposed that idea. I love it. We're in agreement on that one. I love the just taking 16 teams from the entire NBA and putting them together in one playoff bracket. I think it makes sense. It mixes it up. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of fatigued with I'm speaking to the wrong person with that because you love LeBron, you love the Cavs, you want to see him in the finals probably 10, 20 years in a row. But for the rest of us who want to see a little more parity, not just Cleveland and Golden State every year, that would mix it up. That would be very compelling to me in a league that probably needs some more compelling storylines and could probably use a fresh taste on a couple different things.
And we've gotten some of those storylines here in the East that we honestly haven't gotten the last couple of years. You know, I think we've seen more from the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're going to squeak into the playoffs here with the 8th seed. We've seen, obviously, the emergence of Philadelphia. Miami's been okay. Indiana's been okay. And Washington's been pretty good with John Wall out. He's back tonight, obviously. But Bradley Beal has been doing a good job shouldering the load. But in general, the East is still the weaker conference. The West, you know, they're stronger all the way up and down. And Denver and the Clippers are on the outside looking in. They've got 43 and 42 wins, respectively. And the ninth team in the East is the Detroit Pistons. So top to bottom, the Western Conference is just stronger, and I think it shouldn't be held against you where it shouldn't be a detriment to you what conference you're in, the fact that you don't get to make the playoffs because of what conference you're in. I guess it's fair based on the way that the rules are designed, but I don't like it.
Who do you like in the West, Jason, to get that final 8th playoff seed? New Orleans occupies it at the moment, but it's close. Denver is within a game, and then the Clippers are in 2 games of New Orleans. Who do you think makes it out of that trio at the bottom battling for the final spot? You got the Pelicans, the Nuggets, or the Clippers?
I'm going to give it to the Pelicans. Simply going off the best player on any of those 3 teams is Anthony Davis. I think a first-team All-NBA candidate. And I was having this discussion with my dad, too. If you can't tell, we talk a lot of basketball. But I'm wondering your thoughts on this. Kevin Durant last year, Brad made the second-team All-NBA, and I would still probably consider him the second-best player in the NBA. But Anthony Davis has to be a sure first-team NBA guy along with LeBron James and Antetokounmpo up top, I think. But
no question.
I'm just curious on your thoughts of where you would put Kevin Durant.
Look, I put him
about it before.
Yeah, I easily he's number 2. If LeBron wasn't still playing at this high level in year 14, 15, whatever he's in now here in the NBA, how many years he's been in the association, I would probably put him number 1, but it's hard to put anyone above LeBron still at this point. He's got to be 2. He's got to be 2. He's extremely valuable, obviously, to Golden State. We saw that last year. We continue to see it this year. He's such a mismatch. There's no answer for him. And that's why I think Golden State's going to win it again this year. But Durant, to me, absolutely, he's number 2, and I would agree. I think Anthony Davis is 3. He's proven to, at least to this point so far, obviously to be the best player on that team. There were some doubts, I think, from a lot of people when he first came in the league, if he would be able to kind of translate his game over to the professional level. He's done that. I think he's answered that bell so far, and he's only continuing to get better. The only thing I don't like about him is that unibrow. That's the biggest thing. When he posted on social media on April Fool's Day that he was going to get rid of the unibrow, I was like, okay, finally, we're making some steps here to improve a couple different things. But that's his trademark, I guess, and apparently maybe somewhat of a good luck charm. Hey, whatever rolls for you.
I don't know. I was going to say, when you saw him put the phone down and he said, I'm sorry, guys, or whatever, and you heard the rustling, and you saw him put the phone down, and then you saw that he actually had 2 eyebrows on his face and not a unibrow. I believed him. I really thought he just was fumbling with the phone and put the phone down to use the razor, but it turns out he just used some makeup, and I guess he's a guy that's comfortable in his own skin.
You and me both. I thought it was toast for the unibrow, but it was a good April Fool's joke. They always get you. And he was able to, like you said, use some good makeup there and really fool a lot of different people. But, yeah, no, he's great. I mean, he has done a really phenomenal job of being the leader on that Pelicans team. And it looks like New Orleans should be able to get the final spot. I would be surprised if the Clippers do. They've just been too inconsistent. And Denver is somewhat of a wild card. But I agree with you. I think New Orleans winds up getting it. San Antonio, you mentioned the Spurs before. It's going to be the first time in a long time they're not going to win 50 games. And we all know about Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, I know. It's forever. I mean, that is as impressive of a stat as you will see. You talk about consistency and longevity. It's displayed right there. But Kawhi Leonard, it's just been so bizarre with him, from the misdiagnosis of the injury to where things are now. And the team meeting they held a couple weeks ago or so with all the players there in San Antonio. How do you see this playing out ultimately with the Spurs and with Kawhi Leonard? Does he wind up walking away from them? Do they somewhat reconcile things? How do you see it playing out?
I think they have to reconcile things, and I just think it'll happen because the Spurs are an uncharacteristic organization. If he played for literally any other team, I don't think that they would figure it out. And I think that they would ultimately be without him. But I think he's got a cool head on his shoulders, and Greg Popovich has a cool head on his shoulders when he wants to. I think the two of them will figure it out. Greg Popovich obviously on the record a couple of weeks ago saying he doesn't think Kawhi's coming back, and that was seen as more of a shout-out to Kawhi Leonard to try to get him to come back and trying to use the media to manipulate the message of Kawhi wants you back. But San Antonio's been doing okay without him. I mean, I don't think they're anything special without him, but that all depends on how LaMarcus Aldridge plays.
It's true. He is somewhat of a wild card for them, and you're right. They're getting by okay. And right now, if the playoffs start today, they play Utah 4-5 matchup. It's a toss-up. You don't really know. I feel that if they get to a point where they're completely healthy and everyone's on the same page there, they can still compete with the best of them in the Western Conference. Do you think that's the case, or am I being probably a little bit too optimistic about them?
I think compete is a fair word. I mean, I think when you look at what Portland's done this year too, with their insane backcourt of McCollum and Damian Lillard, they're a big force to be reckoned with. But a veteran team in the San Antonio Spurs, when you still have those veteran guys coming off the bench in Ginobili and Parker, I think that adds something new come playoff time. I know we haven't seen a ton from them this year, but I think that they can certainly compete. But the big question is really, can the Spurs do enough to beat the Rockets or the Golden State Warriors? And I think the answer is a resounding no. They can compete, but they have no chance at actually winning the series.
Yeah, not at this point. Even if they were to somehow miraculously become 100% healthy tomorrow, there's been too much inconsistency there, and there's been too much unknowns. Like I said, with Leonard's injury, with the inconsistent play of some other players on the team as well, it would probably be hard to imagine them to be able to take on a Houston or Golden State in a best-of-7 series and coming out on top. Portland is interesting, though. You talked about the backcourt that they have and everything they're able to do as a team. Can they surprise some people in the playoffs here in the Western Conference? Could they push a Golden State?
I don't know. I'm not sold on them. And again, a big part of how I actually feel about Golden State, I don't think I know yet, because I still don't know how Steph Curry's going to be health-wise. I know they still have Kevin Durant, they have Draymond Green, they have Klay Thompson, the list goes on. But I think they can be competitive, but I don't consider them a legitimate threat, just like I really don't consider the Spurs a legitimate threat. I think they can compete, but do I think that Portland's even necessarily a better team than the Oklahoma City Thunder? I don't even think so. And Brad, you look at the standings, look at how close they are. Portland's 48-30, the Jazz are 45-33, Spurs are 45-34, as are the Thunder, and then the Wolves and the Pelicans behind them just 44-34. So everybody's running into each other in the Western Conference. I think it's going to be a great round of the playoffs, but I don't know. The team that scares me a little bit of the teams that we haven't talked about yet is Oklahoma City, more so than San Antonio and more so than Portland.
OKC does pose a threat for a lot of different teams, like you said, obviously with Russell Westbrook, everything they're able to do there, Paul George included in that. We shall see. One thing I've learned is that not to put too much stock into the final weeks of the regular season, and to, let the dust settle as it will. Once the postseason starts up, it truly is another season. Different teams can come on, and different teams can be impressive. Even with the injuries, though, going back to Golden State, even with everything they're going through now, I still think we see somewhat of a similar performance as how they turned it on in the postseason last year. Now, that's not to say that they're going to run the table all the way unto the end of the line in the NBA Finals like they did last year. I don't think that's going to happen, but I still think Golden State is okay, and they will be able to somewhat seemingly control their playoff series once the postseason starts next week. Talked about, some of the other teams, though, across the NBA at the moment, some teams that are not going to make the postseason, teams who are looking towards free agency and the summer coming up. Let's talk about the Lakers, because they're always a hot-button topic. Their regular season is done here in a couple days, and there's a lot of speculation that they could lure a couple free agents this summer, i.e. Paul George, and i.e. one LeBron James. what is your thoughts on that as far as like a national perspective goes? Because I'm out here in LA doing the show each week, and it's obviously a big basketball town, and the attraction to Los Angeles for the locals around here is LA kind of sells itself with the weather, with entertainment, with a lot of different things to do on a regular basis. But from a national perspective, Jason, is the Lakers still a big destination for free agents, in your view? The team's been bad for a couple years now, obviously. But does that kind of cancel itself out?
I think they should be a destination because look at the way Kyle Kuzma's played this year. And I still think Lonzo Ball is a guy with tremendous upside. And I think you have something with Brook Lopez. I'm not quite sure what you have besides scoring. You know, he's not that great of a rebounder for a guy that's over 7 feet tall. But I think you have something there. If you told me next year the starting five for the Lakers was Lonzo Ball, Brook Lopez, LeBron James, Paul George, and let's throw, I don't know who, it doesn't really matter who else in there. That's a pretty solid 4 players to me with Brook Lopez, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Paul George, and LeBron James. That's a pretty solid starting 5 for me.
It is. That's a lot of star power right there, obviously, and that would sell a lot of tickets. Do you think if that does happen, and I think the chances are still somewhat slim that you get both Paul George and LeBron to come to LA, but let's play the hypothetical and let's say it does happen. Once those guys come in, insert them into the lineup, are they already at a level of a Golden State and a Houston, or are they still a little bit further away?
No, they'll be fine. LeBron James is the best player I've ever seen, the best player to probably ever play basketball, in my opinion. He makes your team an instant championship contender. And I think Lonzo Ball is just going to continue to get better in his second year. Again, Brook Lopez, you won't even need him to do a whole lot out there, but LeBron will be feeding him down low. They could certainly challenge Golden State. But as we were talking about off the air, and I know you and I disagree on this, how it affects LeBron's legacy. I don't really like a guy just to keep jumping from team to team.
Yeah, to me, see, I look at the other side of the coin. Like you mentioned, we talked about before the show. If he comes to LA, the possibility exists that he could be very successful here, perhaps bring a championship to the Lakers. If he were to do that, Jason, I mean, if he wins a championship ultimately with the Lakers, if he comes here, it's a big if, but if he does it, he will have won in 3 different places. How many players in the history of the game can say they've done something like that? Now, you already say that he's the best you've ever seen, so in your book, I guess he really doesn't need to prove anything else. It only potentially hurts his legacy. That's really your argument. But I just think that the potential, and he's someone who likes different challenges and getting a change of scenery. We've seen that before going down to Miami. He's already won in Cleveland, so I think he's out. I think that's the one thing you can bank on, that he's going to leave the Cavs this summer, and he's going to go somewhere else just to try and win again. If he comes here to the Lakers and he wins, we talked about that, we know what that can mean, but if he goes back to Miami, let's say, and wins there again with Dwayne Wade, I mean, what a story that would be. He's someone who likes to create a very interesting narrative, if you know what I mean. He likes to create these great storylines, and he's not someone who stays in one place for his whole career. He likes to mix things up and challenge himself. I think it really would make for a great, compelling storyline, like I said, for him to win in a 3rd place potentially. Not many people can lay claim to that.
See, I think the winning in 3 places is irrelevant. I do think it'd be interesting if he were to go back to Miami and play with Dwayne Wade. Well, I don't know if LeBron was happy that Wade got traded back. I'm sure Wade wasn't too upset that he got traded, considering where he got traded to, where he's the man down there in Miami, and they call it Wade County.
Yeah, that helps.
But I think it helps a little bit. But I think that it's just a bad look for LeBron's legacy if he goes somewhere else. I mean, that said, I'm still going to support him blindly. And the fact is, wherever he goes is an instant championship contender. If you put him on any team in the NBA, put him on the Sacramento Kings, they'll instantly be a contender, even in the tough Western Conference. So LeBron James just shifts the battle of power so much. Even, what are we going into? I think it's his 17th year, maybe it's his 16th. He's just so good that he could alter any team, and they're immediately a championship contender. It doesn't matter that you possibly won for 3 different teams. It matters more that LeBron James gets another championship, wherever that is.
It's Behind the Mic, live from Kings Cove here inside the Toyota Sports Center in El Segundo. We're talking with Jason Wechsler from the Northeast Sports Network. We're going to step aside. We'll take a break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll continue our discussion with Jason. We'll get into the LeBron versus Nick Saban feud. I have some thoughts on this. I'm sure Jason does as well. Oh, man, LeBron being LeBron. We'll talk about it on the other side. We'll also get into some baseball news. Major League Baseball's opening week. There's been plenty of storylines, talk about storylines in baseball already. The best and the worst. We'll talk about it on the other side. Behind the Mic. Download the official Behind the Mic app on your smartphone. You can also listen online, behindthemicshow.com. We're back for more after this.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs were established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? Shifting to a system based on primary care can help fix the problem. Patients with a primary care doctor live longer, healthier lives and are less likely to suffer from cancer, heart disease, or stroke. Primary care that is comprehensive and coordinated also saves money. Patients who have a primary care doctor spend 30% less on health care than patients who don't. States with a high number of primary care doctors have lower healthcare costs and higher quality care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
You're listening to Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Welcome back. It's Behind the Mic. We are live from Kings Cove inside the Toyota Sports Center. Come on over on Nash Street here in El Segundo. Listen online if you can't make it out. BehindTheMicShow.com is our online stream. And if you haven't done so already, download that official Behind the Mic app and check out our podcast on iHeartRadio. Brad Dalius talking with Jason Wechsler from the Northeast Sports Network. Check him out, nsnsports.net. Check out Jason. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Wechsler. Before the break, we were talking a lot of different NBA news and notes. Postseason coming up. Kyrie Irving, he's done for the year. LeBron and the Cavs somewhat have a clearer path back to the finals coming out of the Eastern Conference. Maybe the Sixers have somewhat of a path to maybe not get to the finals, but to get maybe to an Eastern Conference final. We also discussed the Western Conference, how teams currently stand. Golden State dealing with the injuries. Houston still at the top. San Antonio mixed in there as well. We also discussed who may get into the playoffs for the 8th and final seed. There's a lot going on right now across the NBA. The next thing I want to get into, though, Jason, is we were talking about this before the break a little bit, during the break. LeBron versus Nick Saban. This is kind of dominating the news cycle here for the last day or so. If you haven't heard about this yet, basically the gist of it is that LeBron hosts a web series. It's called The Shop. It's been on now for maybe a couple years or so, I want to say, in which they're in a barbershop setting talking sports. It's called The Shop. So Nick Saban and Alabama come out with their own version of a show that takes place in a barbershop called Shop Talk. So very similar. You see where I'm probably going with this. So LeBron gets wind of this, and he's upset. And he has his team essentially send out a cease and desist type of letter to Nick Saban in Alabama. So Saban has a news conference about it yesterday. He's asked about it. He's shocked that LeBron is so upset. He says LeBron's a great player, but we're going to continue to do the show. It's not trademarked, by the way. LeBron does not have his show, The Shop, trademarked, so it's somewhat in the public domain of fair use conversation. And Jason, I just don't know what LeBron's talking about here. This is why people get irritated at LeBron sometimes, because he talks about this stuff when he should be focusing on other things, such as the Cavs, Ty Lue, who comes back tonight for his little hiatus there, dealing with some health problems. He should be more focused on that. I understand he's one of the best players to ever play the game, but still, come on, LeBron. Let it go.
Yeah, I don't really get it, especially like you said, because it's not trademark, number one. And number two, there were a couple movies that came out dealing with people in a barbershop if LeBron didn't know that one.
Yeah.
I just think it's being petty, and it's creating a story. I don't know if LeBron's trying to distract from something else, but I don't know why, with a week to go in the NBA season, you're suddenly trying to pick a fight with Alabama. Maybe Nick Saban could teach LeBron a lot about how to win in the finals. That's just another thought of mine. I had to put that one out there.
Yeah, obviously both individuals have done very well in the championship rounds of their respective sports. But true, Saban does have him beaten in that sense. Alabama's only lost one championship game since he's been down there. So, yeah, everyone can take a few lessons from Nick Saban. I don't think there's any question about that. And like I said, I have to side with Nick on this one. I just think LeBron is making much ado about nothing. He says his lawyer team is going to take care of all the details going forward. I guess he's not really going to talk about it now. But the fact that he did talk about it and he made it a point of emphasis during, I guess it was shoot-around maybe yesterday. They were interviewing him about this, the press was. And the fact that he made it a big talking point initially, obviously he lets the cat out of the bag, and then people can just take it from there. You can't really make a big deal about something and then shut it down 2 seconds later, as he's trying to do, because, like I said, especially in the social media age, once you get it out there, it sticks. It's like glue. It's not really coming off, at least not anytime soon. So we'll see how this situation plays itself out. It's just another chapter in LeBron being LeBron, as I probably want to call it here, just kind of getting into some things that are not as important as the big picture. But it helps to drive talk. So
yeah, I don't get it. I don't see the point in looking for a problem to start, and I don't think he's going to win in court anyway. LeBron's going to lose in court. So what are we even doing here?
It sure seems that way. But again, he likes the attention, Jason. There's no doubt about that. He is somewhat of a diva. I posed this question to you during the break. We see a lot of this right now from certain figures in sports. Who is a bigger diva to you, LeBron or Odell Beckham Jr.?
It's so tough. They're both ridiculous. But I have to say Odell Beckham Jr. because maybe just because I give LeBron James more the benefit of the doubt with the championships and MVPs he's been able to win. And we haven't seen LeBron have a meltdown on the sidelines, really. We've seen him, have spirited discussions, but we haven't seen him go nuts. Like we've seen Odell go nuts when he was fighting against Josh Norman, and then when he punched the field goal net. I just think that Odell's antics, they might wear out their welcome in New York. I sure hope that they don't. I sure hope that they decide to keep him, especially with Eli Manning having a couple of years left, hopefully. But Odell's the bigger diva. But it's very, very close.
It is close. I would agree. It's going to be interesting with Beckham this year, with the new coach that the Giants have and Pat Shurmur. If he kind of changes up his act a little bit, I, for one, think he will stay in New York. I know they're somewhat unofficially shopping him right now, quote-unquote unofficially. I think he stays there ultimately, and I think you will actually see somewhat of a change from him, because this is not Ben McAdoo's team anymore, clearly, going forward. This is a totally different regime they have going on there with the Giants, so I think you might see a change. But LeBron is always going to be LeBron, because he's always going to command the most attention, and basketball it's a team sport, but it's not the ultimate team sport as football is. So I got to give it to OBJ as well. Slightly, though, I agree, it is close.
And by the way, as much as I hope that Odell partners with Eli, I'm praying the Giants draft the quarterback.
Yeah, it's interesting. Things are really heating up with the draft talk. Draft is 3 weeks away from today. The NFL draft commences, and that is the big talk right now. What do the Giants do with their top 5 pick? Do they take a quarterback? Do they maybe take Saquon Barkley at the running back position? Yeah, it's going to be very interesting where they go. Now, I agree with you. You would think they would take a quarterback, because they're not fooling anybody if they try and convince people that they're actually sold on Davis Webb to be the future of this team.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. And I think just having the option to hand it over to Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen or Josh Allen, whoever you end up getting after the Browns take their pick, to have the opportunity to hand it over to one of those guys in 2 years and have two quarterbacks, in a 30-year span for the Giants would be something unique that pretty much no team besides Green Bay in recent memory has done.
It would be pretty miraculous. There's no question about that. What do you think Cleveland does do? Do they take a quarterback at 1? Do they maybe take Barkley at 1 overall? It's such a unique position they're in to have 2 picks in the top 5. We just don't see that all the time.
Yeah, no, I think that they go with a quarterback. It really changes by the second. Originally, I was hearing they were definitely going to take Sam Darnold. Now I hear that they might take Josh Allen. I think they're going to go with Josh Allen, but I don't know. I think if he doesn't get... I'm sorry, Brad. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Josh Allen, it's such a question mark. I mean, him playing at Wyoming, not many people, let's be honest, really watched Wyoming football last year and saw him play. But from what all the scouts and prognosticators are saying is that Allen just doesn't have the pop, if you will, on the football. Just doesn't have the precise touch yet. And I would be wary to pick Allen. Now, granted, if he's the last one left out of that three, yeah, you got to take him. He's better than a lot of the other quarterbacks who are going to be taken. And there's talent in this draft, but there's no doubt that Darnold, Rosen, and Allen, those are the top three. Me personally, I don't know about you, Jason, but I really like Josh Rosen. I was at the USC-UCLA game last fall, and I saw both quarterbacks, obviously, and to me, there was a clear difference between Darnold and Rosen and where they're at right now. To me, Sam Darnold definitely has a lot of potential and upside, but if you compare the two side to side, it's actually not even close to where Rosen is. Rosen looks like an NFL quarterback. Honestly, his composure looks a lot like Eli Manning if you watch him in the pocket. It's very similar, and you can't teach composure in the pocket, as we know. You just have to. It's something you have or you don't have, as long as you have somewhat of a decent line in front of you. But to me, if I'm Cleveland, I would take a quarterback, but not number one. Personally, I would take Saquon Barkley number one because of how unique a talent he is. And then I would take whatever's left.
There's no chance in today's NFL you take a running back with the number one pick. I'd be absolutely shocked if the Browns did that because running backs just don't last, super long. You could draft a quarterback that's there for 15 years. I know that you have the number 4 pick if you're Cleveland, but you could pick any of these quarterbacks. Pick your best quarterback and then hope that Barkley's still there at 4.
So are you taking Darnold number 1?
I think I would take Darnold number 1.
Okay. And that's fair. I mean, he definitely has a lot of upside, like I said. I just really like Josh Rosen. But I want to take him number 1 just because we see, again, that these guys are going to be left with the unique situation of Cleveland picking twice in the top 5. Saquon Barkley has the potential, if he can stay healthy, to be one of a unique talent, to say the least. Coming out of Penn State, the career he had there, he's so versatile, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Perhaps he can return punts on special teams or kickoff returns. There's a lot of different things he can do, not just a pure running back. So it's a little different for me. I understand, obviously, the league has evolved into a passing league. It's totally different than what we've seen in the past. But for Barkley being there at number 1, potentially, I would really highly consider doing it. I would consider it.
You have to go most important position first, and you have to go with quarterback. And by the way, I think we'll see 3 quarterbacks selected in a row. I think the Jets go quarterback. So I think the Browns have the opportunity to draft Barkley at 4. That said, if they miss out on him, I'm not that upset about it because you should be taking the quarterback you think is going to be your franchise quarterback. Obviously, it's Cleveland, so that won't happen, but theoretically.
Once again, we're speaking with Jason Wechsler. To check out his work for nsnsports.net. Talking a little mocked draft here. The draft starts 3 weeks from today. Lots of moves to potentially be made. We'll see how it all plays out. Back to the Giants for a second, Jason. How many more years do you think Eli plays, realistically?
I'd say 2. This year and 1 more.
Okay.
I know they were ready to ship him out of town, or at least Ben McAdoo was ready to bench him, or maybe it was ownership. Who knows, actually, who decided to do that. But I think he's got 2 more years left in him, which is why I think it's important that you get Odell Beckham Jr. on the field, even though he says he's not going back on the field until he gets a contract extension.
So I know you're a Giants fan, and you're in the corner of you want to see Beckham back.
Yeah, I am absolutely in that corner because I think we see it all the time. How good you are dictates how big of a distraction you can be. And Odell's obviously still so good that you got to deal with his off-the-field antics.
Yeah, that's true. And we've talked about that extensively here on Behind the Mic. OBJ, potentially good destinations for him. I personally believe that he would benefit from going to an organization that has been very successful recently. There's stability there, an ownership and a head coach that's been in place for a long time, the right quarterback. I think that would really help to benefit him. I actually potentially, for potential destinations, I think if he were to be traded away, hypothetically, I think that Minnesota would be very intriguing because that's a team who's ready to win now with Kirk Cousins, newly added Kirk Cousins at quarterback, a solid head coach in Zimmer. I think that's the type of franchise that would be a good landing spot for him. But it's interesting because I feel like Giant fans are very split on this because, let's face it, they haven't won since he's been there in New York. They've barely scored 30 points very often, and we all know what happened last year. He's an incredible talent. It just is very undisciplined, as we all know it, at many different parts of time. But it's interesting to hear that from a perspective of a Giants fan, that you actually want him to come back and you want to you want to iron things out and make it work. And it's interesting. I could see both sides of this, and it's hard to, like Gettleman said, it's hard to quit on talent. You don't want to quit on talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he stays healthy, then he's the second or third best wide receiver behind Antonio Brown. So how could you not want him back? Agreed.
There's no question about that. Pittsburgh is interesting as well because Pittsburgh has so much talent. That's another discussion for another day. But they have so much talent on their team in their own right. But yeah, I agree. It would definitely make sense to be able to work things out and make it work here in 2018. So we'll see how things shake out there going forward. I do want to segue into a little baseball talk now, though. Opening week, it's been 1 week now, actually. Last Thursday is when the games kicked off. We've had a little bit of everything, Jason, this first week across the league, from postponements of crappy weather in the Northeast, New York, Boston, Philly, all the Northeast. It's been a long winter, as you know, in that corridor part of the country. So we've seen a lot of postponements.
Brad, it's supposed to snow here at noon tomorrow.
Stop it. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, come on.
A couple inches.
Come on, this is crazy. I mean, it is April 5th, right? I mean, it is springtime, or it's supposed to be. Man, oh man! I mean, this has just been crazy. I was talking about this last week on the show before things started. We were like, wow, we're happy to be watching Dodger games out here because at least the weather's going to be good. We don't know if the Dodgers are going to come flying out of gates, but we know the weather is going to be solid. Not the case, obviously, for the East Coast teams, but. Talk about the play, though, that we have seen on the field so far. For starters, the defending champs have come out of the gates red hot. They're 6-1 to start the year. They've essentially picked up where they left off last year in the World Series. They're hitting the cover off the baseball. So you have the Astros doing their thing. Out here in L.A., the Dodgers have gotten off to somewhat of a slow start. They've struggled. The bullpen has been horrendous in the first couple of games. They've been inconsistent at the plate. And Kershaw has lost his first two starts of the season. So the two World Series participants last year, the champs, are off to a flying start, but not so much for the Dodgers. That's what we're seeing as far as those two teams are concerned. And as you look to the East Coast, you have the Yankees, who are projected, obviously, to do great things here in 2018, Jason. And Giancarlo Stanton has really gotten off to as good of a start as you can hope for. Your thoughts on Stanton and how he's looked so far?
I think he's going to deliver. He's been just fine despite that bad game where he struck out, 5 times?
Yeah, and what's up with that, by the way? The Yankee faithful booing him on his first home game in pinstripes. It's got to be a violation.
Yankee fans are spoiled. I don't get it. I don't know what booing him is going to do besides, irritate him a little bit. I don't think it'll affect him long term, but I don't even understand why you do it. I really don't understand booing your own home team at all, really. I don't really ever understand that.
If the team is like 20 games below 500 and they should be in a pennant race, okay, I can give you that one. But booing any player in the home opener, come on. You're better than that as a fan base.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I don't think you'd ever see that from Met fans.
Probably not. You probably wouldn't. Met fans are a little bit of a different breed than Yankee fans. There's no question about that one. And speaking of the Mets, they come out on top today over the Nationals, 8-2. Pitching has been good. They've been able to get through here a couple starts with the pitching staff. It has been able to get through the first week here. So what are your impressions, Jason, of the Mets pitching so far through the first week?
It's been pretty good. You like to see that DeGrom's been able to be strong here the last his first two starts of the year, and I think the Mets still have a potentially very scary rotation. The question mark, the big question mark, is Matt Harvey going to be able to return to form from a couple of seasons ago? And I think that's still a big question mark going forward. The over-under for the Mets was 85 games. I think that they have the potential to win more than that. I think that they have the potential to compete with Washington. I do think they'll end up getting a wild card. I still give Washington the nod in that NL East because of, honestly, just because of Bryce Harper. But
is there enough pop, Jason, in the Mets lineup to potentially win over 85 games?
Yeah, no, I think there is. They had Michael Conforto coming back today. I think that's going to help them in the outfield. Obviously, re-signing Jay Bruce was a big thing for them as well. He hit a grand slam here today, and I think they have enough firepower in the lineup. The big question for the Mets is always, can you stay healthy?
That is the key. I agree. That's the biggest thing is health with them. Cespedes has looked good. What's your take on how he has performed here over the first week?
I'm just, I just still feel so fortunate as a Met fan to have a guy that's in there that has the caliber bat that Cespedes has. I find it interesting that he's been batting second. I find the trend interesting in general that the best batters have been batting second now in a lot of Major League Baseball lineups. I don't know if I really get it, but it's a move I used to pull when I was playing video games, and I would change the lineup. But
I think we all did that at one point.
I didn't think it would really take off like we've seen.
Yeah, I think we all did that at one point or another, Jason. I would agree with that. Trying to insert the best guys into the best spots in the lineup, whatever it takes to get things done at the end and to produce a lot of different runs. In the National League East, though, outside of the Mets, the Phillies, Gabe Kapler has been a disaster, point blank, here in the first week. I mean, he's been absolutely atrocious with some of the moves he's made, pulling starting pitchers out with 2, 3, 4-0 run leads. What's he doing down there? I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, no, I don't know how you signal for a pitching change without having another guy ready.
Yeah.
Never seen that before.
How about that, right? The guy's not even ready to go in the bullpen, hasn't even thrown a pitch yet, and they're calling him to come in the game. I mean, I think I've seen it all.
I think that Philadelphia could figure it out this year, but I think that the Mets and the Nationals will be the two big teams there in that division, and I don't really see that changing. I think the Mets have enough firepower. I think they have enough starting pitching if they can get something from Matt Harvey. But I still think it's Washington's division to win.
I agree. To me, the Nationals this year, it's all about the postseason. It's all about the postseason, how they perform, and if they can actually win a playoff series for the first time since that franchise has moved to D.C. That's what it's all about for me. It doesn't really matter the regular season. We know this is going to be a good regular season team. They've proved that consistently now over a number of years. But can they win when you turn the page and move on to October baseball? That's what it's all about for me with Washington. I agree with you. I think the Mets have a solid pitching staff, obviously, and they should have enough in the lineup they're off to a 5-1 start here so far, so they're doing things right in week number 1 of the season. If they keep up that play, they'll be just right, and the Mets definitely could be a playoff team this year. I don't think there's any question about that. Like you said, it's all about health, though. It's all about staying healthy.
And I think a team that we didn't mention, we talked about the Yankees, but I think we're forgetting about a team that could definitely challenge them in the AL East and the Boston Red Sox.
Yes, it's interesting with Boston because coming into the season, they were somewhat of a wild card in the sense of a team. We didn't really know. There was a lot of question marks with them. They've been led well by Dombrowski on some of the different moves he's made, but we just didn't know. But you're right. Boston can definitely compete with the Yankees. Again, I think there was doubt about that, but now that the season has started, we can maybe see that starting to take shape. And as always, when the two of them hook up during the season, it will be must-watch TV, no question.
Yeah, and I think that Boston, it comes down to whether they can get, can they get something out of David Price? Can he stop just fighting with the media can Chris Sale be as dominant as he was in the regular season? I think the answer to that is yes. I don't know about him come postseason time. Can Craig Kimbrell come out of the pen and continue to do it for Boston? I think the answer is yes. I think the Yankees have too much firepower in their lineup for Boston to overcome in terms of winning the division, but Boston definitely gets a wild card to me.
It's Behind the Mic. Once again, we're live from Kings Cove here in El Segundo, the Toyota Sports Center. Brad Dalius hanging out with you until 9 o'clock tonight, talking with Jason Wechsler from nsnsports.net. We're going to step aside, take another break. On the other side, I'm going to chat with Mr. Michael Franca, calling in from SB Nation. We'll talk about Lonnie Walker making the decision to go pro come June. So we'll talk about that and everything else that's going on in the world of sports. Behind the Mic, back with more after this.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late. We stay informed. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Everybody buckle up. Mom. Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Take us with you on the go wherever you may be. Download the official Behind the Mic app today. Listen live online, behindthemicshow.com. And check out our podcast on iHeartRadio. Back inside Kings Cove now, the Toyota Sports Center is our home on Thursday evenings. It's over on Nash Street here in El Segundo. It's a great spot, great atmosphere here. It's the official training facility of the Los Angeles Kings. Great place to take in a game, whether it be hockey or any other sport as well. Kings Cove, Thursday nights here in El Segundo. Definitely come out if you're in the neighborhood. Back now, we're going to now join a good friend of the show here on Behind the Mic. This guy covers Miami sports for SB Nation's State of the U blog, as Michael Franca now joins us on the line. Michael, how are things going tonight? We appreciate the time.
Things are good. Thanks for having me again.
No worries. It's another, very eventful week here in the world of sports. There's lots going on, obviously, from March Madness wrapping up at the beginning of the week to now the end of the week. Mock drafts are kind of getting in full force with the NFL draft just being 3 weeks away. And we also have guys declaring for another draft, the NBA draft, to come in June, obviously. And one guy who declared for the draft, who you cover on a regular basis, Michael, is one Lonnie Walker, of course, the freshman sensation from Miami this past year. This was somewhat of a no-brainer decision. I think many people from many different outlets saw this coming. When you and I spoke last month, you seemed like it was a slam dunk that Lonnie was going to declare for the draft once the season was over and the dust settled on Miami's 2018 campaign. But here we are now. Lonnie's going to declare for the draft. He's going to be a high pick. Your thoughts initially on Walker declaring for the draft, and then where do you see him picked?
Yeah, I think it's the right move for him. He could use a little more development, but it's going to be a no-brainer. He'll be middle of the first-round pick, most likely. And it's the right time. It would be a mistake to come back, risk injury. And as far as his prospects are for where he'll be picked, I've seen a lot of people mocking him to go between 15 and 20 in the draft, maybe late lottery. I think he's the kind of guy, come combine time, he's going to really stand out with his athleticism and his measurables. So I think that might boost him into the late lottery range. My dream, personally, I'd like to see him land in that 10-11 spot for Philadelphia. I think that'd be a perfect landing spot for him. But if not, those two mid-first-rounders from Phoenix would be a good spot, too.
Walker played in all 32 games for the Canes last season. He started 18 of them. He averaged 11 points, 2.5 rebounds, and about 2 assists per game this past year, Michael. Is this a guy who is really ready for the next step, or is there some growing pains to come here, perhaps? Obviously, he will go down as a one-and-done player in this era where guys just play 1 year in college and go on to the pros. Personally, as the one-and-done era continues to progress forward, Michael, I'm just not a fan of it. I think guys, there's obviously rare exceptions to this, but for the most part, guys are just not ready for that jump from 1 year in college to the NBA. Case in point, we saw last year with Lonzo Ball out here in Los Angeles. 1 year at UCLA, then right away he goes into the draft. Obviously, he becomes a high pick, but we saw this past year for the Lakers, as their season is starting to wind down now, there's a lot of growing pains as he's had to go through, a lot of maturing, both on and off the court. Off the court, something to do with his family as well, but these are minor details. But you know what I mean? I mean, there's definitely a lot of pressure on these guys to be great right away when chances are they're probably not. There's only so many Kobe's and LeBrons to go around in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I was thinking Philadelphia would be a good landing spot for him, somewhere where there wouldn't be too heavy expectations right away, because I definitely think he's going to need time to grow into his role. He's got all the physical tools. The thing that happened this season in Miami was an overall lack of consistency on both ends, and it's not an issue of motor either. He's a very dedicated kid, but I think it's just a matter of fine-tuning his skills and being able to contribute more consistently on both ends. So, I think I'd agree with you for the most part that he and many other of these one-and-dones need more time, but it can't turn down a good look at the league like he's going to get.
Ah, yes, that is the other side of the coin, Michael. There's no question about that. You have to look at that. That's what these guys are doing, obviously. And with that being said, even if he does struggle right away in a year or so, ultimately, what is his upside? How good of a player can he be? We're actually from the same town. He went to Reading High School. He won the state championship with them. This is out of Reading, Pennsylvania. I went to a high school about 10 minutes away from there. So it's, he's probably going to be the best basketball player ever to come out of that area, I would say, without a doubt. Growing up in the area, there's no question. Donyell Marshall graduated from Reading. He played in the NBA for a period of time, but there's no doubt that Walker has an upside that will surpass, in all likelihood, Donyell Marshall and other guys who have come out of the area if he can stay healthy. How good of a player can he be from what you've seen just covering him and covering this team?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd bet on him being a superstar, but I don't want to try and put a cap on what he can be either. I think he's got a very good shot of being a really, really solid and consistent starter rotation piece for a good team. I think he's the kind of guy that when he fills out his frame a little bit, figures everything out, and starts being a little more consistent, he'll be a great defender and he'll be a great slasher. So I think those two will be like his main NBA attributes. I think that'll lend itself to a long career as a starter and a contributor, but not really a go-to guy, I don't think.
We're talking
not on a good.
We're talking with Michael Franca from SB Nation. Check out the State of the U blog covering all things Miami. Lonnie Walker deciding to go to the NBA. Michael, how do you think he compares to some of these other guys who have declared for the draft already or will do so fairly shortly towards the top of the draft? Because we think he's going to be a high pick, as you alluded to before. How does he compare with some of these other guys at his same position?
Yeah, I really, really like his prospects, actually. Another guy in his kind of small forward role that a lot of people are picking to go ahead of him is Kevin Knox from Kentucky, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Kentucky also. I like those guys, but I really, really like Lonnie Walker because he's kind of a renaissance man. He's a really bright kid. He's really dedicated. And I think those are the kind of things that are going to help him be able to push himself forward and be able to help him expand his game and grow past what he is right now. And also, of course, he's probably 6'5", got like a 6'10" wingspan, something like that. And his vertical is incredible. Once he starts to be able to put that all together, I really like how he's going to compare those guys.
Yeah, he's got a solid frame, right? I mean, this is a big guy. I mean, there's a big difference between him and I gave the example before of Lonzo Ball coming into his first year, where Lonzo just take the physical aspect, was just not there with some other guys. You think of like a Kyle Kuzma who played 4 years in college and now he's with the Lakers in his rookie year. There's a big difference physically wise. But with Walker, definitely a unique guy. I mean, he definitely has, he has the strength already. You can see it, and seems to be a bit beyond his years in that sense. He's ready to go physically, and you need that, obviously, with the toll your body takes in the NBA, especially when you're a rookie with all those games.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I think is key in projecting like how a prospect will pan out, and especially length. In addition to his size and his frame, the wingspan is going to be a huge factor. It actually played out pretty well on a couple of occasions. He stealed, I think, 2 separate games with game-winning blocks, and they were on the perimeter too. Just great closeouts because those long arms of his, those are going to be huge on the defensive end, and of course, being able to stay in front of people with his wide frame is going to be huge too.
Follow him on Twitter at Michael E. Franca. Okay, Michael, how do you project his rookie year to go? Wherever he may land in the draft with whatever team, what type of role will he play his rookie season?
I think it's going to depend a ton on where he lands. If he were to land somewhere in Philadelphia, I think it'd be pretty solid. I think he'd play his role, be smart about it, and be a key contributor. But if he landed somewhere like Phoenix, I don't think it'd be bad necessarily, but maybe they'd expect a little too much go-to production from him. I think they'd try and, obviously on a team with a lower ceiling, lower expectations, first-round rookie is going to get a lot of run, and I'm not sure he's ready for that yet. His college numbers weren't great, even though he flashed great moments and he closed the season pretty strongly. He really on the season only shot about, I think, 41% and like 34% from deep. He wasn't a great passer. So there's a lot to work on, but all the tools are there. So eventually he'll get there, but the rookie season, it'll depend on where he lands, I think.
He has the pulse of Miami sports for the State of the U blog on SB Nation. Michael Franca. Hey, Michael, thanks so much for checking in tonight. We appreciate the time.
Of course. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.
You too.
There he goes once again, Michael Franca from the State of the U blog, SB Nation, checking in here on Behind the Mic. Great chatting with Michael. We had him on last month on the show and talking about it's when Miami got upset by a team called Loyola Chicago in the first round of the NCAA tournament, a team that we weren't familiar with at the moment, but we all know now after their miraculous run throughout March Madness here in 2018. So good stuff there from Michael, good insights about Lonnie Walker and where he potentially could wind up once the NBA draft comes along here in June. It's going to be interesting. As I said, he's from Reading, Pennsylvania. He went to Reading High. They won a state championship last year in his senior year. And potentially he's probably going to be, if he stays healthy, because health is always a big factor to take into the equation here. If he can stay healthy, he should be able to have a very bright and prosperous career in the NBA. So great stuff there from Michael. Really great to have him on the show here at Behind the Mic. He's become a good friend here on the program. Great to always chat with Michael. We now bring back Mr. Jason Wechsler from nsnsports.net. We were talking about baseball before, Jason, before Michael came on, and we just chatted with him here on Behind the Mic, talking about a whole host of different things. We were chatting about the Mets and where they are to start off the year so far, and I forget where else we left off, but a lot happened so far during this first week, and a guy I do want to talk to you about is actually Shohei Ohtani. Have you caught any of his action yet? His pitching debut, any of his at-bats? What are your thoughts on Ohtani so far?
I've seen a couple of the at-bats. I don't know if the hype's real yet because it's only been a few games for Ohtani. I think it's great that the guy wanted to both play designated hitter and pitch. I think that's wonderful for the game of baseball. I think it adds a lot to the sport and makes the Angels much-watched TV. I think that Ohtani's done well so far. You know, he's hitting for a good average. He's hit a couple of home runs, and I think he's done pretty much everything you would have wanted out of him so far. I mean, he's batting .429. He's 6 for 14, which is pretty good, but it's only 6 for 14, right, Brad? I mean, there's not a huge sample size with Ohtani and a whole lot to go on yet to say he can be a productive major league hitter.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's only been 1 week. We can't judge him off of only so many at-bats and just one pitching performance as well. But the thing I love about him is how this guy is all about the team. Like, he'll do whatever it takes. Like you just mentioned a moment ago, he's willing to be DH. He's willing to pitch. Now, granted, he has the capabilities and the talent to do those type of things, but you have to love his mentality out here. We talked with Mark Gubis, the official color announcer for the Los Angeles Angels during spring training, and he was raving about him. He's a great clubhouse guy, really gets along with the team, and the language barrier is not as much as you would think so far with him being over here in America. So far so good. It's been a good first week, a good debut with him in the major leagues with the Angels. I love the fact also that unlike other stars who've come over from Japan and the Asian countries in recent years, he comes over young, Jason. He's only 23, whereas a lot of guys such as Ichiro, Tanaka, Hideki Matsui came over a little bit older.
Matsui, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit older once they had already established themselves internationally to the major leagues. I always say if Ichiro would have came over a lot sooner than he did, potentially we would maybe be talking about him closing in on Pete Rose's all-time hit record. It would have been close, but obviously that never panned out because he decided to come over later. So that's a really unique thing here about Ohtani is how young he is. The sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And yeah, I mean, Ichiro has over 4,000 hits, right? But if that's counting his time in Japan.
That's what I'm saying. If he would have came over,
decided to.
Yeah, exactly. If Ichiro would have came over sooner, we would have been talking about him potentially being right there with Pete Rose's hit record.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's great. I think it's, again, great for the game of baseball, and Bryce Harper, again, leading that campaign, wanting to make baseball fun again. I think Ohtani's going to make baseball fun again, and I think that Ohtani's underpaid, Brad. He's really underpaid. He's going out there every day, and he's pitching on his 5th day. He should be getting a little bit more money.
Well, if he keeps pitching the way he did on Easter last Sunday, and if he keeps hitting the way he does with all these dingers, yeah, he will get paid a little more money in time. I don't think there's much doubt about that. He will command a top dollar figure, and I would think that the Angels would be willing to pay him that. The big thing about the Angels, and we talked about it during spring training here on Behind the Mic, this is a big year for them. they really have to make the playoffs this year. Scioscia's been there as manager for a long time, and I know they won the World Series a long time ago, though, now, but still, they have to really make noise this year, and all the moves they made this offseason, bringing in Ian Kinsler, adding some depth on the team, this has to be the year they make the postseason.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. It's make or break time for the Los Angeles Angels.
Hey, Trout's not getting any younger.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And you look up and down the lineup, too. Neither is Mr. Pujols.
And Albert's had a good start here as well. He's hit a home run. He's contributed, and he's at, I don't want to say he's in his prime anymore. It's late prime, I guess, if you want to call it. But yeah, he still has been able to contribute, and he can still get you a good hit in a timely manner when you need it. So they have the pieces on this team to make a playoff push and definitely compete for a wild card spot. We'll see how things play out as we go along here. The season obviously still very young, just within the first week or so, and there's a lot of games to be played, as we know. I want to go around now and kind of touch on a few different things, things that are on my mind from what I've seen during the first week. Number one, I got to go to opening day and get your thoughts on what was a disaster down in Miami with the Marlins taking on the Cubs. And number one, the Cubs lead off the season with a solo home run to kick things off. But that wasn't the worst of it for the Marlins, with Urena hitting 3 batters. Is that what it was? He hit 3 Cubs, right, in the first inning of the season down there last week on opening day. How does that happen?
I think the Marlins are a very interesting team. You look at everything Derek Jeter did in the offseason, drawing the scrutiny of many, shipping out Stanton among other prominent Marlins players, and I don't know. Again, I don't want to say I don't care what the Marlins are doing, but I don't think that they're a team that's going to make much noise this year at all. I think they're a team that's trying to tank, and tanking in baseball doesn't really work, so you might as well just try to win. But Derek Jeter really just wanted to cut costs. And I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a team that's not very good this year.
I thought it was somewhat comical on opening day after that Marlins loss to the Cubs. Don Mattingly came out and basically said that, yeah, we're going to be a team that's just not going to hit a lot of home runs this year. And almost simultaneously, as he was saying that, you have Giancarlo Stanton hitting the cover off the baseball in Toronto. So that was a little, ironic in that sense on opening day. But the Marlins, obviously, yeah, I agree with you. They're not going to do much this year. This is a team that's obviously in a complete rebuilding process. They have their hands full down there with Jeter leading the way on ownership, and I know some people who actually went down to that game on opening day, and it was a disaster as far as the customer service team goes, the concession stands, and people just kind of being behind on things, and they just weren't up to a professional level. So not only the team on the field, but that entire organization has a long way to go, Jason, to really get back to some winning ways. And it's still a young franchise, relatively speaking, and they have had a lot of success in their first 20 years or so with winning 2 World Series, but clearly they're a long way away from getting back to those ways at this current point in time. So he's got a lot of work on his hands.
Yeah, I mean, they had 2 championship teams, and they blew both of them up. Yeah. They didn't have a championship team last year, and they still blew the team up. So who knows what they're thinking besides the fact that they want to shed these big contracts.
That's just it. And, we see this a lot in sports. When new ownership groups come in, they want to put their own stamp on the franchise. I mean, look at Chicago in the late 90s and when that new ownership group came in and some different things they wanted to do, and they decided to blow up the Jordan era and start again and see if they can win a different way. And we've seen this throughout the history of sports, so it will be fascinating to watch the situation kind of unfold in Miami as things go forward in the future. Houston, though, I mentioned this before earlier in the show. They get off to a red-hot start here, 6-1 to start the year, seemingly picking up from where they left off in the World Series last year. Is there any slowing up the Astros that you can see? I mean, they've got Verlander for a full season now here in 2018. They still have Keuchel. There's a lot of depth on this Astros squad. Do you see them slowing up at all?
No, I really don't. And you look at the start that Carlos Correa's out too. He's got 3 doubles and he's batting .474. The Astros actually have 4 players. Yeah, that's right. 4 players batting over .400 right now. I know it's early, but I think that their offense is something to be reckoned with as you go up and down the lineup. I think they're just a team that's going to continue to get better and a team that's built themselves up the right way to be successful for plenty of years.
They have done that. It's been amazing. Some people thought they wouldn't get off to a hot start. They've done that here. It's definitely been impressive so far to start off this 2018 campaign. Who's a team who you're maybe surprised with so far, Jason, who's either been good or poor to start off this year? What's a team that's jumped out to you?
I might have to go with the Angels. I think they're playing really well, and we already talked about it, but I didn't really know what you were going to get from Ohtani. So far, I'm impressed, and I like the direction that they're going in. You know, I think you have to rely pretty heavily on Albert Pujols, which you said he was in the back end of his prime. I'll say he's in the twilight of his career. You know, they need him to hit about 25 home runs, drive in 100 runs, which is certainly within his realm of capability. But do they have enough to sustain themselves through 162 games? I think that's something that the Angels have struggled with, and we'll see if they'll be able to do. They're off to a positive start here, but again, it's very early. Baseball season is very long, so I don't put much stock into the first week of the season.
It is a marathon. We've seen that over time. Don't want to get too high, don't want to get too low after what we've seen during week number 1 here. I will say, though, Jason, being out here in L.A., people are a little concerned about the Dodgers at 2-5 to start off the year. It's not, by the way, Los Angeles is not an Angels town at all. We know they've rebranded themselves as the Los Angeles Angels officially, but they play down in Anaheim. Literally, you don't see any red here in LA. You have to go down to Anaheim specifically to see that. So it's been all the talk about the Dodgers. We've been trying to hype up the Ohtani excitement during spring training, but it's hard to catch on here in LA. It's all Dodgers. The town is blue. People are a little concerned about them, though, being inconsistent. The bullpen's been terrible. A couple nights ago in Arizona,
it's been awful.
Oh yeah, they've had their struggles during this first week, to say the least. The bullpen, though, is the most concerning. Guys like Pedro Baez and some of their other relievers out of the bullpen. The other night in Arizona, they walked in 3 consecutive Diamondback players with the bases loaded, Jason. 3 straight Diamondback players crossed home plate, not doing anything but having the bat on their shoulder. I mean, that's bad in itself. Just a snippet of some of the struggles they've had so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously can't allow that to happen. The Mets, on the other side of the coin, DeGrom was able to work out of a bases-loaded jam with nobody out and not surrender a run earlier in the Mets' 8-2 win over Washington Nationals.
See, there's the 2 extremes. You see one end of it and then the other end of the spectrum there.
Yeah, I think Kenley Jansen's got to figure it out, but I think the Dodgers, they're a good enough team and they have enough talent where they'll be able to weather the storm, right?
I think so. We talked about them in spring training, that there is one of the strengths of this team is their depth. Obviously, with Turner being out here for a month or so to start off the year, they moved Forsythe over to third base. He struggled a bit at the plate, but they should be able to get by without him ultimately. The inconsistency, though, at the plate is a little bit of a concern when we thought this would be the main strength of the team to get them through. I personally was more concerned coming into the season about the rotation depth. Yu Darvish signs with the Cubs in the offseason, although as bad as he pitched in Game 6 of the World Series, many Dodger fans were very fine with him leaving and walking out the door to go and sign with the Cubs. For top dollar, by the way, I might add, in Chicago. So I think, though, that obviously still left a void in the rotation at the 2 spot after Kershaw. And although I like Alex Wood and Rich Hill, I think they could really use another starter, and I think they will look to add another guy in the rotation as we move along here into the season and eventually to the trade deadline at the end of July. So there's still a lot. They have depth on this team, but there's still some pieces that they can improve on, that they could get to add on this team to and better improve them by actually bringing in Matt Kemp this offseason. That was an idea that I floated around, that potentially they brought in Kemp to build him up and to maybe make him a trade piece down the line to bring in somebody else. They'd have to find a right suitor, obviously. But like I said, they could use a number 2 starter in the rotation, the Dodgers could, and they could definitely use some help in the bullpen at this point in time. So the Dodgers can definitely improve going forward here in a lot of different ways. And there's other teams across Major League Baseball here in this first week that can do the same as well. Your thoughts, Jason, on some of the other teams across baseball at this point and some of the new acquisitions, actually. You look at San Francisco adding McCutchen in the offseason. They've had a lot of injuries to start off the year. They've added him, and we've seen that through other teams as well. What are some of your thoughts on different acquisitions to teams this offseason and how maybe they've started off the year?
I think going out and getting Andrew McCutchen was huge. I've always liked him as a difference maker that he was over there in Pittsburgh. I'm really high on the Mets, and I know I say it objectively as a New York Mets fan, but I really just think that they have so much firepower in their lineup, more than people are willing to give them credit for, that I think not enough people are talking about it. I know, and we're only a week into the season, and I'm just still so excited to see the battle between the Yankees and the Red Sox. I don't think people are giving the Red Sox enough credit, and we touched on it before, because the question is, can Rick Porcello return to his Cy Young form of a couple of seasons ago? And can they get something out of David Price? Can David Price continue, or I should say start to be a guy that doesn't just have fights with the Boston media, can go out there, just put his head down and pitch? And if Boston can get something from Eduardo Rodriguez as well, I think they could potentially be a very tough team going forward. Brad, who's been the biggest surprise in a negative fashion in your estimation so far?
It's tough to say. To me, San Diego has been disappointing, although they really weren't projected to do a lot this year. The big talk out here was trying to find a team that would compete with the Dodgers in the National League West this year. The Padres have just been disappointed. There's just not much life with that franchise right now. It just seems to be lacking a lot of different things. Seattle, though, has been a little bit of a surprise on the good side. I'll get into them in just a second. But I think as far as the worst goes, I got to go with Gabe Kapler, the Phillies manager. It's just been a disaster with some of these things. And him and Aaron Boone are kind of similar in that they've never managed before in any capacity. Obviously, Boone has a lot better of a roster to work with at this point in time than Kapler does in Philly. But still, I mean, these are basics, Jason. I mean, pulling a guy out when he's at 90 pitches and your team is up 3-4-0, and bringing in a guy out of the bullpen who hasn't even thrown a pitch yet. I mean, you talk about miscommunication and not being on the same page. It just has not come off as very good. Luckily for Kapler, again, as we've talked about, it's only been 1 week here into the season, but we know how those Philly fans can get, and especially with all the success that town has had now over the past couple of months, the faithful will definitely be getting a little restless if the Phillies don't improve on things, and if Kapler continues to make some of these boneheaded decisions as we move along here in the next couple of weeks. So to me, that's been some of the absolute worst from what we've seen there.
Well, the interesting thing I was going to say, the interesting thing with Kapler is that he can't possibly do that again, right? It's something you saw once and you're never going to see again. I don't know if we'll ever see it again in baseball, because I've never heard of anything like that happening.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, my gosh, it's absolutely terrible. You and I could have done a better job than that. I mean, wow. There's a reason why you don't see something like that every day. And to me, that's just got to be the absolute worst of what I've seen here so far in week one. And again, I go back to what we talked about earlier on tonight, the booing from Yankees fans of Stanton. I mean, a guy who could not have had a better debut in Toronto. The weather is awful in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium for their home opener, and he strikes out 5 times. I mean, yeah, he's a power hitter. He's going to strike out a lot. Now, 5 times was maybe a bit of an anomaly. He's probably not going to do that maybe again this year that many times in a game. But Stu, to boo him on opening day, that was some of the worst that I've seen as well. It's just total violation. You cannot boo a guy in the home opener. You can't have it. I was not a fan of that at all.
I absolutely agree with you. And by the way, he went 0 for 4 today, so maybe Yankee fans will be booing him again. Yankees are only 4-3, 7 games in. But listen, I still think you look at the 3 big hitters in their lineup. If you include Gary Sanchez in there, I think the 3 of them are going to have over 150 home runs. And I'll take the strikeouts if they happen for 3 players in my lineup hitting over 50 home runs. I'll take that every day of the week.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? With guys like that, Stanton, Judge, like you said, Sanchez, Gregorius hit one out the other night. It's just loaded with star power across the board. Yeah, you'll take the good with the bad because the good is going to outweigh the bad in the long run. We all know that. This is going to be a playoff team. They're probably going to win the AL East, although the Red Sox will compete with them, as we've talked about earlier. But they're probably going to win the division. It's all about October with this team, and that's why they brought in Stanton to hit home runs in October, obviously. People are not going to get too upset. At least the Yankees will not get too upset about him striking out multiple times in a game at the very beginning of April. It's all about timing. It's all about when it happens. If he strikes out 5 times in October, we got a big-time problem then. But I don't suspect that will happen. I do not think that will happen as we come down the line eventually towards the end of the season. Once again, it's Behind the Mic from Kings Cove here inside El Segundo. Brad Dalius hanging out with Jason Wechsler, calling in tonight from nsnsports.net. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say the other thing that Yankee fans can be happy about is some good starting pitching that we've seen. It was the second quality start in a row for Masahiro Tanaka. 6 innings and an earned run, but he struck out 8, and Yankee fans got to be excited about Tanaka's hot start to the year.
Yeah, that was a big question of mine, and one of the reasons why I wasn't as crazy with the Yankees as some people were going into the season. Incredible lineup on paper, but the starting rotation, this might be Sabathia's last year. Tanaka's had the injury problems in the past. He's been a little inconsistent at times, but like you said, so far so good here this season. So we'll see how that rolls along, but the bullpen obviously is top-notch, and that will prove itself throughout the season. We'll just see if the rotation can hold up. But do you think this will be Sabathia's last year? How much do you think he's got left?
I didn't think he had anything left, and then I saw him pitch last year and thought, all right, this guy's doing pretty well, and I thought it was good of them to bring him back this year to see how he can contribute. I think at this point, I don't know how much you're going to get out of him this year, but I know this for a fact. He's going to be a positive influence in your clubhouse, and that's worth something at least for the Yankees.
Yeah, every team needs that, and he's been there for so long, like you said. If anything else, it's really just a cherry on top of the ice cream, and he continues to pitch well, like you said. It seemed like it was a good business move for them to bring him back this year. Obviously, if they're going to have success, especially in the rotation, you figure he'll be a big part of that as the season progresses along. We're going to take a break for our final break here on Behind the Mic tonight. We'll come back for our final segment, talk a little more Major League Baseball. I also want to touch on the Masters opening round today from Augusta, how Tiger did. And also, I got to talk about Sergio Garcia. And he had a moment today on the golf course that most of us can relate to if we play golf. I'll talk about it on the other side. It's Behind the Mic, live from Kings Cove.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs were established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? Shifting to a system based on primary care can help fix the problem. Patients with a primary care doctor live longer, healthier lives and are less likely to suffer from cancer, heart disease, or stroke. Primary care that is comprehensive and coordinated also saves money. Patients who have a primary care doctor spend 30% less on health care than patients who don't. States with a high number of primary care doctors have lower health care costs and higher quality care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
You're listening to Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Welcome back inside the Kings Cove here at the Toyota Sports Center in El Segundo. Brad Dalius hanging out with Jason Wechsler. He covers sports for the Northeast Sports Network. As I've been mentioning all night, definitely check out their great work at nsnsports.net. By the way, the Dodgers and the Angels are both off tonight. The Dodgers travel to San Francisco. They open up a 3-game set tomorrow night against the Giants. And then the Angels will host the Oakland A's for a 3-game series down in Anaheim starting tomorrow. We've been talking a lot of baseball tonight here on the show. I definitely want to mix in some Masters stuff now. Round 1 took place at Augusta today. Great weather day. That was one of the things we talked about last night here on the show, was potentially if the weather was bad down there, that could affect some different things as far as scoring goes, guys getting into a rhythm and everything like that. Great day. The sun was out, and we saw some great scores posted down there. Jordan Spieth is the leader after day 1. He had the round of the day, a 6-under 66. he had a streak there actually on the back nine where he had 5 consecutive birdies. He was really tearing it up and really found a zone as he was driving the ball well off the tee. As I mentioned last night, that was going to be the key this week. Whoever could drive the ball and put it consistently in the fairway, as usually is the case, was going to put themselves in a great opportunity to be competitive and ultimately win this tournament this week. And Spieth did that today for the most part. He did bogey 18. So he finished at 6 under. He came back from 7 under after he made his 5th consecutive birdie on the 17th. So 6 under for Jordan Spieth. Tiger Woods shot a 73, 1 over par for the day. Tiger's round was interesting because it was a little bit of everything, Jason. He comes out and he doesn't play very well initially, has a couple bogeys, and then once he went into Amen Corner, it came a stretch there where potentially if he didn't make, it was about a 15-foot putt for bogey. He was potentially staring at a double bogey opportunity or maybe worse. It was key. He sank that 15-foot putt or so for bogey, saved bogey, was able to move on, and although it was bogey, he was able to gain confidence with the length of that putt, and he wound up hitting a few birdies down the stretch. He was at +3. The couple birdies towards the end got him back to +1, so not bad for his first major tournament since 2015. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, and the thing about Tiger is that everybody's tuning in to watch. People that are casual golf fans like myself, right? I'm a casual golf fan, but I tune in to watch Tiger Woods because he's larger than life. The same way we were talking about how LeBron James draws eyeballs to himself. Tiger's the same way, if not better. The ratings go astronomically up when Tiger Woods is in there, and Tiger Woods is competing after the first day of play. Something we haven't seen too much from him in the recent years is the fact that he might actually win.
It's great. He drives the ratings like none other. I don't think there's any doubt about that in all of sports, not just golf, but any sport. He drives the ratings like no other player we've ever seen. He's right up there with a Michael Jordan, with a Kobe, Shaq back in the day during their prime with the Lakers. He's one of the best, and the sport is better for it when he's out there competing. We see it, and that's nothing against a Jordan Spieth or Dustin Johnson, who's the #1 player in the world, or a Ricky Fowler. A lot of the young guys and some of the more seasoned golfers as well who've been around a long time. Nothing against them, but no one drives the excitement of the sport like Tiger does. And like you said, we saw that today with everyone tuning in. You better believe people were waking up to watch a little Tiger at the Masters in the first round. So +1, 73, not so bad. Again, the biggest thing for him, his Achilles heel, has been his inability to drive the ball consistently in the fairway. It's nothing new. It's been like that his whole career. He's been able to make up for it for the most part with his stellar short game, with his incredible putts, the outstanding chips that we've seen over the years, and I do think we will get a good dose of that this weekend. It's just a matter of if he can put his ball in a good spot to start off the hole, and then the rest should be able to take care of itself. I suspect he will play a little better tomorrow, a little more consistently than we saw today. I think it just depends what everyone does at the top of the leaderboard, though. Like I said, with Spieth being 6 under par, does he come back a little bit more tomorrow? Does he hit a couple bogeys, and does he wind up being at -5, -4? Or does it go the other way, and does his score only increase deeper into red figures? Do we see him go -7 or -8? And some of these other guys like Matt Kuchar and Henrik Stenson at the top, do we see their scores increase as well? Charlie Hoffman, another American who's at 3 under par. It just depends. It really does. And if you and I were talking about this earlier tonight off the air, I think before the show, if the winning score is more so like -8, -9 at the end of the weekend by Sunday night, Tiger's probably not going to be the winner of this tournament. But if it comes back more so to like -5, -4, I think he's right in the mix then. It just depends. It's circumstance.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I know this for sure. People seem to have forgotten about Tiger Woods' 2 million affairs, and people that are tuning in to watch him are certainly rooting for him because you just like to see excellence personified, and I think that America in general loves to see a comeback story, and that's what they're hoping for with Tiger Woods.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously it's been well documented everything in his personal life and in his professional life as well. We know everything about him, seemingly over the past decade or so, with everything that's come out. Did you see the book that actually came out? It was like a couple days ago, actually. They came out with the book. A couple veteran journalists, I think Armin Kintea was one of the journalists who came out with the book, kind of detailing his whole life, actually spanning numerous decades of his life, both on the course and off of it. And it just kind of talks about different scenarios and how Tiger has, I think he's evolved, really, as an individual here, both on and off the course in his personal and his professional career. He seems more of a looser player and person now, if that makes sense, especially in his interviews that he's been conducted over the past week or so on ESPN and other media outlets. He seems more loose than he's been in the past. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, no, I do see that. I think he's having a little bit more fun out there. I think that the pressure's certainly not off, but I think for him to expect a return to being the player that he once was is just an unrealistic expectation at this point. So I think he's kind of realized that and just trying to go out there and have some fun playing golf.
Yeah, that's what it's about, and he was definitely doing that during the practice rounds this week. Did you see him and Phil out there? Did you see some of their practice shots? I mean, these guys are just, incredible, and we talked about it last night here on Behind the Mic. Phil and Tiger and some of the other guys in the practice rounds this week at Augusta, skimming their golf balls off the top of the water on 16, on purpose, I may add, on purpose, and hitting the ball onto the green. It's incredible. I mean, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't play golf, correct?
No, I play mini golf.
Mini golf, okay. You're like my sister. She likes mini golf too. That's her favorite. Golf is just such an incredibly hard sport. I've always said that just because, unlike a lot of other sports, you're trying to actually get the golf ball accelerated at such a high speed, starting at nothing. Obviously, you have a baseball being thrown in at 90, 95 miles an hour. Other sports as well, it's just different. Golf is such a unique sport in that sense, and it's just incredible. I mean, these guys going out there and what they've been able to do, and they just make it look so easy. Jason, on a regular basis. So Mickelson, by the way, he shoots a 2-under today, 70 for lefty. How about Vijay Singh? It feels like Vijay Singh's been playing for like 50 years now. At 1 under par today, he shoots a 71. And a couple other notables as well. Louis Oosthuizen shoots 1 under par. He won the Masters a couple years back now as well. I mentioned Ricky Fowler. He goes 2 under today. But I don't know if it's a story of the day, but the moment of the day, and not for the better, Jason, was Sergio Garcia. Garcia won the Masters a year ago. That was his first major win of his entire career. He's a likable guy. He's been playing for such a long time. He kind of came in on the PGA Tour when Tiger did as well, late 90s, a very similar time frame. But he's always been close, but he's never been able to win. He finally broke through and won the Masters last year. He's looking to defend his title here in 2018. And he comes out today, and he plays well for the most part on the front nine. A couple bogeys, couple birdies, couple different things mixed in. But the moment of the day came for him on the par 5 15th, Jason, when his shot from, I don't know, maybe about like 100 yards out or so, hits the green. It takes an unfortunate spin backwards and rolls all the way off the green into the water. So, like many of us in golf, we've done that before, right? We hit the ball into the lake, into the pond, whatever type of body of water it may be, and we have to hit the shot over again. So he takes the penalty stroke, hits it again, and what does he do? He does the exact same thing. He hits it into the water again. So now we're working on the third time. What does he do? He hits it in the water for a third consecutive time, Jason. He wasn't done, though. Because then the fourth time he comes up, what do you think happens on the fourth time? He hits it in
the water again.
Exactly. I was like, let me help you out. He hits it in the water for a fourth time. He winds up with a 13 on the par 5 15th. That's as in 1-3. That's a 13 score. It tied the worst score ever, I believe, in the history of the Masters on any hole by any player. A 13. I mean, I just that's like your normal average Joe out there on the golf course sometimes with just having no luck. We've all been there. We can't get the ball out of the sand trap, out of the bunker. We always hit it in the water, but this took the cake. 4 consecutive shots into the drink for Sergio Garcia today. Scores a 13 burger, if you will, on the par 5 15th. Had to be the moment of the day, and like I said, not for the better, somewhat of a shock and awe type of moment for Garcia. I never saw anything like it. Truly unique.
Yeah, no, I've never seen anything like it too. He could go out there and probably try to do that another 100 times. He just wouldn't do it.
Right, exactly. You wouldn't even do it if you tried. That's the crazy thing about it, right? That is amazing. And after that, he actually comes back and he birdies. He shoots a 2 to get a birdie on the par 3 16th. So go figure that. How do you go from 13 to 2 is beyond me. But that's the beauty of golf sometimes. You just don't know. You don't know, and you just have to go to the next tee box. That's the beauty about golf is there's always another tee box to go to. But, wow, can't imagine that when you're a professional at the Masters with all the cameras on you. Nowhere to hide. Not too many rocks at Augusta. So that was the moment of the day for me from what I saw down there, their first round of the Masters. It's great to see it, though. People always look forward to it. It's kind of somewhat of a passage to a bridge to spring for a lot of people. It's for a lot of folks across the country, it's their first image of spring. And like you said, for you guys in the Northeast, there's still snow scheduled for tomorrow. So I guess spring is... I think it's just going to go right to summer, actually. That's what it looks like. It's going from winter right to summer. There's no spring in the Northeast this year, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. We're supposed to get about 2 inches tomorrow and then maybe see some snow on Saturday. I had my baseball game that I was supposed to call tomorrow for NSN was canceled and moved to Sunday. And I have a lacrosse game that I'm going to call on Saturday that could be a little in doubt, too, because of a little bit of snow if it weren't for the fact that you're going to just play lacrosse anyway. But the fact that we're still talking about snow here in the Northeast as we're about to hit April 6th is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm living in the wrong place.
Yeah, clearly. You and probably a million other people. But the fact that it's not even April Fool's anymore, Jason, it doesn't even work for an April Fool's joke. Like you said, it's going on April 6th. I mean, come on at this point. It's just the jokes, it's been good, Mother Nature, but it's time to move on at this point in time. And like Jason said there before, definitely check out and follow all the work he does for the Northeast Sports Network, nsnsports.net. Jason does a great job. Play-by-play, really kind of everything, right, Jason? You're somewhat of a utility player for them.
Yeah, I do primarily play-by-play for them, and then I do some sports talk as well, and just try to get my hand in a little bit of everything, and always available for a word, especially on the NBA, because my mood goes up and down with how many points LeBron James scores and how many points they decide to allow the opponent to score, which is way too many heading into the postseason.
Clearly, as evident tonight against the Washington Wizards. Hey, Jason, final thoughts on tonight's show and everything that's happening in the world of sports, everything that we didn't cover tonight as we wrap up this Thursday night edition of Behind the Mic.
We didn't talk enough about the Oklahoma City Thunder and how Carmelo Anthony could potentially be a difference maker, because if he starts to really make his threes and Russell Westbrook shows a desire to pass the ball in late-game situations, not just for stats, in late-game situations, the Oklahoma City Thunder could be a force to be reckoned with in the West.
Who comes out of the West, ultimately?
Oof. I have to go with Golden State, and I have to go with Cleveland in the East until somebody proves me wrong.
Can't knock you for that. You got to roll with it until someone beats them. It's hard to argue on that stance. I am in agreement with you, Jason. No question about it. We shall see. I'm just hoping that it's somewhat competitive. If those two do hook up again in the finals, that they are somewhat pushed in their respective conferences. We shall see. That will do it for tonight's show, Behind the Mic. Kings Cove, like I said, is always our destination on Thursday evenings. On Wednesday nights, we're always at Grunion Sports Bar and Grill over in Manhattan Beach. Definitely want to thank everyone who came out tonight, everyone who listened online. Don't forget our stream is always BehindTheMicShow.com. If you haven't already done so, download that official Behind the Mic app and check out our podcast on iHeartRadio. Big thanks tonight to Michael Franca from calling in. Check out his blog, The State of the U, on SB Nation. Always putting out great stuff there, Michael is, for SB Nation and the State of the U blog, covering everything that's going on with Miami sports. Congratulations to Lonnie Walker officially declaring for the NBA draft. And big thanks to Jason Wechsler for coming on tonight. Once again, he does a great job for NSN Sports. Check out the website, nsnsports.com. Follow him on Twitter, at Jason Wechsler. Jason, thanks so much. It's been fun tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Brad, thank you. I had a lot of fun.
Same here. We'll talk again at some point down the line.
Sounds great.
For Jason, I'm Brad. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Keep living the dream. I'll talk to you next week.